ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. We got a great show for you today as we continue, as hopefully you like that last story. Businessman Shri Thander entered the Michigan Democratic gubernatorial primary race last June with no political experience and has largely been ignored by the media, including The Intercept, which has covered the primary as mostly a two-person race between centrist Gretchen Whitmer and insurgent Abdul El-Sayed. Thander has loaned his campaign only nearly $6 million, according to public disclosures, spending much of that on TV and framed himself as a fiscally savvy Bernie, who is the true progressive candidate. Which, I mean, is a little bit odd because that's kind of implying there you don't really agree with his economic policy, which is a pretty big part of Bernie being Bernie. So, I don't know where you stand on his economic policy. That money has allowed the chemist-turned-entrepreneur to surge to second place in the race behind Whitmer, a former state Democratic leader, and ahead of El-Sayed, a Detroit public health chief whose credentials as a progressive are much more established. But his personal bankroll much thinner. That's something that really encourages me. I mean, it sounds a little bit weird. When people don't have bloated bankrolls in politics, that makes me feel a lot more comfortable about them when they say they're a progressive. So, yeah, there's definitely, there's no problem with that. Yeah, but with El-Sayed and Thander splitting the progressive vote, here's the worrying thing. Whitmer's chance of moving on to the general election improves. A similar phenomenon has developed in California, where the surging popularity of progressivism is proving to be both a blessing and a curse. For the first time in a generation, it pays to be seen as a lefty, but it's hard to voters to tell who's who, because they can pretty much vote for whoever they want, and since there's no runoff system, there's no top two system. They won't in California. They won't push a progressive to the top, and it won't be a kind of a true representation of the way things are going. So, like, again, if we talked about like we talked about on the show, like maybe a week ago or so, ranked choice voting, that system where you put in like your top three candidates, and the most likely the person ranked the highest on the most ballots would eventually win. Then there would be just much more of a question. There'd be much less of a question. My apologies. Than the fact, than what we would normally see. It would allow third parties to prosper, and it would allow progressive candidates to prosper. So, like, if they put on one centrist and two progressives in this ranked choice voting system, the progressive would have the better chance of winning because more people want the progressive, and that's probably, if you gave them the California option, that's what they would do. So in every race, there's like two or three centrists, like a Republican or two, and then there's like a bunch of progressives, and that the progressives and the Republicans are just splitting the vote here. It's just not working. It's getting a little bit worrying. So yeah, El-Sayed, who has raised nearly $2 million according to campaign finance reports, boasts one of the most progressive campaigns among gubernatorial candidates nationwide. His team includes a whole host of former Bernie Sanders presidential campaign staffers. Check. His platform includes single-payer healthcare. Check. A $15 minimum wage. A $15 minimum wage. Check. A criminal platform focused on reducing sentences. Big check. And using commutation to reduce the number of younger prisoners. Check there again. Thander's platform also includes a $15 minimum wage and a promise to eventually move to a state single-payer healthcare system, which would provide government-run healthcare for all state residents. A little bit worrying, but I give him kind of a check there. But his kind of the way he phrased it, they phrased it there in this report. It's just like eventually move over to a state single-player healthcare system. It's a little bit worrying. But federal disclosures show that in December 2017, he wrote a $2,300 check to then Hillary Clinton's campaign, and as she was running to the right of then Senator Barack Obama. Like, that's a little bit strange. That is definitely a little bit strange. So, I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking about. I don't know what I'm thinking about that right there. That to me does worry me a little bit, but maybe it's very possibly changed positions, or is he just fooling us with this somewhat progressive platform? So, yeah. And, politicians, he says, you pay them to get access. You can't talk to them. I wanted to talk to McCain about immigration issues. Oh, by the way, did I forget? In March of the following year, he also donated to $2,300 to Arizona Republican Senator John McCain's presidential campaign. He went on to become the Republican nominee, ultimately, again, as I'm sure you know, losing the election to our first ever black president, Barack Obama. Asked about the donation to McCain at an event in Central Michigan University, Thanadar said that a friend was running McCain's campaign and he wanted to talk to McCain about immigration. So, since donating to the McCain campaign, Thanadar has guided his dollars to Democratic candidates. So, for example, 2010 gave to Kansas Democrat Raj Goyal, running for re-election to Congress at the time. He gave $15,000 to Obama's Victory Fund. Last year, he donated to Senator Debbie Stabenow of Michigan. Like Goyal, she's a kind of fairly moderate Democrat. According to Rob Fowler, who runs the Small Business Association of Michigan, when Thanadar met with the group before announcing his gubernatorial bid last year, he was still undecided on whether to run as a Democrat or a Republican. This is very, very strange. I am liking this guy less and less and less. He's undecided at this point in the race. He's still undecided as whether to run as a Republican or a Democrat. That, to me, is very worrying. It shows you that very possibly, if you want to go progressive, you got to go progressive, and you got to mean and have an established track record of being progressive. This guy really does not. The most recent campaign disclosure deadline in Michigan was December, and the next one is in July. So that means there's no official data on the campaign spending this year. But unlike Thanadar, who has made his fortune running a chemical analysis firm in St. Louis, El Sayed and Whitmer don't have the ability to bankroll their own campaigns. A staffer with the El Sayed campaign told The Intercept the campaign has not spent any money on TV ads yet. In contrast, Thanadar has spent $1.8 million on the tube, primarily in the Flint and Detroit areas, very poor areas. According to El Sayed's campaign research, Thanadar lost millions of dollars during the recession, but he hit the jackpot after moving to Michigan and starting a new chemical analyst businesses. His rags to riches story, at least the riches that resulted, may be an interesting factor in the race. All right, we will get to another story about the DCCC and the fight for the solo Democratic Party in the midterms in 45 seconds. Stay with us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to today's show. We got one more story. So it's going to be very exciting. So happy, again, that you stuck through to this point. We thank you. You are the real supporter. You're what makes us able to do Newsflash every single solitary day. So the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee has, and by the way, if you're listening to us live, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a big thanks. So, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee has intervened in a third U.S. House race in Texas, endorsing former Obama administration official and NFL linebacker Colin Allred for a Dallas area seat held by incumbent Republican Pete Sessions. In 2016, the party failed to even field a candidate in the race. He gathered 38.5% of the vote in the first round of the Democratic primary for the 32nd Congressional District, short of the 50% he needed to advance in the runoff, directly to the general election. He still has a clear May 22nd runoff against Lillian Salerno, another Obama administration veteran. It's like the Obama party here, who's earned 18.3% in the 7-person field. A DCCC aide pointed out to Allred's state performance in the primary, strong performance in the primary. A series of endorsements, including the state and local AFL-CIO the former Dallas mayor and U.S. Trade Representative Ron Kirk, former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Julian Castro, Allred's former boss. But choosing sides in the primary before Democratic voters have the final say could irk some of the party faithful, and it's angered one, surprise, surprise, Lillian Salerno. I figured they'd let us duke it out, but they couldn't help themselves, Salerno said, who is a small business entrepreneur before working for the United Nations and the Agriculture Department. I don't see how the benefit of this helps our party. I'm a Democrat. Why does this help us? It's unclear what designating Allred as a red to blue candidate accomplishes in March. I love how they have that red to blue campaign. Like we're going to flip it. Like all these little earnest but so fake and so connived little social media campaigns. Hashtag red to blue. Like it just, that kind of, it makes me laugh, but it makes me like say, oh, what children. They are actively working for the Democratic Party to go in these positions to go from red to red. Like this is the Bernie Sanders people, the progressive people are literally putting all the work they possibly can. They're endorsing, they are pushing for the wrong candidates here. They're pushing for candidates who have a proven track record of losing with the positions that they occupy, and the fact that that's happening here just shows you like their campaign should literally be called red to red, because it's not going anywhere. Like if we go like this, if we continue to go like this, it is not going anywhere. So as I told you, in the Houston area 7th district, the DCCC dropped opposition research on it. Democrat Laura Moser before the primary, which didn't stop her from advancing to the runoff and might have even helped in the 23rd district located. Yeah, exactly. They can't get out of their own way. They hate progressives. They hate true liberals. And even when they try to bury them, the